Over thousands of years, most apex predators have learned a simple rule of survival: avoid humans. We are noisy, dangerous, and unpredictable. But a strict subset of species operate outside that rule. Under specific conditions, they will actively stalk, pursue, and hunt humans as a primary food source. To understand why, we look at the apex threat matrix. This map highlights 6 primary threat zones, where the biological realities of these animals clash directly with human populations, separating Hollywood monster myths from objective field data. In India and sub-Saharan Africa, you find attacks driven by biological desperation. Here, animals turn to humans only when they lose the physical ability to hunt their natural prey. Conversely, in Australia and the extreme north, predation is tied strictly to environmental opportunity, or macro shifts like climate-induced starvation. As human development pushes deeper into wild habitats and global temperatures shift, encounters are moving away from accidental, defensive strikes. Predators are increasingly treating human settlements as reliable hunting grounds. Managing the lethal friction between wildlife conservation and human livability requires looking closely at the specific environmental triggers that force these animals to hunt us in the first place. We start with the pure opportunists: saltwater and Nile crocodiles. These massive reptiles require no broken teeth or starvation to view a human as a meal. They rely entirely on flawless aquatic ambush. By remaining absolutely still at the water's edge, with only their eyes and nostrils exposed, their dark, rough skin becomes indistinguishable from mud or a submerged log. In northern Australia, the public education is absolute. If there is no sign explicitly saying the water is safe, you assume a crocodile is in it. Avoiding the water entirely is the only guaranteed survival strategy here. Contrast that with sub-Saharan Africa. Millions of people have no piped infrastructure. They must physically enter rivers and lakes daily to fish, bathe, and collect drinking water, placing them directly inside the strike zone. The result of this forced overlap is hundreds of unavoidable human fatalities every single year. Surviving in crocodile territory forces a brutal behavioral trade-off. You either completely restrict your movement away from the water's edge, or you accept a persistent daily statistical risk of being dragged under. Big cats follow a different set of biological rules. Lions and tigers naturally steer clear of human noise in settlements. That behavior breaks the moment they sustain a severe injury. A broken canine or a missing claw or a porcupine quill lodged in a paw permanently eliminates their ability to sprint after fast-moving deer or wild boar. Starving, they pivot to the slowest, softest targets available. In 1898, 2 maneless lions terrorized a railway camp in Tsavo, killing dozens of workers before they were finally shot. Their remains now sit quietly here at Chicago's Field Museum. Today, the threat is heavily localized. In the dense mangrove forests of the Sundarbans, the difficult terrain and high volume of human humming collectors create a grim anomaly. A third of all modern tiger attacks happen exactly in these narrow channels. Local workers tried deterrents, like wearing face masks on the back of their heads to trick the tiger's ambush instincts. But these are highly intelligent animals. They observe the trick, adapt to it, and eventually attack anyway. This creates severe friction for wildlife agencies. When an endangered cat turns to hunting humans, officials must weigh the biological cost of killing a critically rare animal against the immediate safety of local villagers. A man-eating tiger is almost always the tragic byproduct of human interference, frequently an old gunshot wound, leaving conservationists with zero morally simple solutions. While tigers stick to the deep forests, the leopard is the ultimate urban infiltrator, possessing higher adaptability than any other large feline. In India, aggressive human development pushes roads and concrete straight into established leopard territory. Using darkness as cover, leopards easily navigate this new architecture. They walk straight into densely populated cities, sometimes entering homes through open windows while people sleep. In rural areas, the threat is even more exposed. Makeshift fencing provides almost zero resistance against an animal that hunts silently and climbs flawlessly. Because they are smaller, quieter, and masterful at using shadows, leopards have quietly accumulated one of the highest body counts of any land predator, proving statistically deadlier to track than tigers. Sharing a border with a leopard means the environment becomes actively hostile after dark. Nighttime livability requires permanent vigilance because the threat can bypass standard barriers completely undetected. In the extreme north, the polar bear presents an entirely distinct anomaly. It is the only bear species on the planet that actively and deliberately stalks humans for food. If you surprise a grizzly bear, playing dead might convince it the defensive threat has passed. If a polar bear approaches you, playing dead just makes its job easier. In remote Arctic communities, survival dictates a strict rule. A polar bear walking toward you is never simply curious. It is a predatory approach. The macro catalyst driving his behavior is shrinking sea ice. Without stable ice, bears lose access to their primary seal hunting grounds, leaving them stranded on land with rapidly depleting fat reserves. Starvation forces them inward. In 2019, dozens of desperate polar bears simultaneously invaded a Russian town, rummaging through garbage and entering apartment buildings to find calories. The Arctic threat model leaves no room for error. Utilizing standard wildlife survival tactics here will guarantee a fatality, demanding absolute behavioral compliance from anyone living in these zones. Analyzing these predators individually shows us exactly what forces them to hunt us. Synthesizing them shows us how to survive the overlap. This chart maps an attack's predictability against our ability to prevent it. Crocodiles sit in the top right, highly predictable and preventable. Injured big cats and leopards fall into the bottom left, as their stealth makes them wildly unpredictable and difficult to stop. For anyone traveling into these environments, assuming wildlife will only act defensively is a fatal miscalculation. You must learn the localized rules of engagement. For conservationists, the data is equally harsh. Passive deterrents only delay the inevitable. As human development expands and habitats shrink, the severe friction between our species is permanent. Man-eaters are largely a mirror to our own expansion. True coexistence doesn't come from domesticating apex predators. It comes from rigorously managing our own boundaries and accepting the unforgiving realities of the environments we choose to enter.